here we go. Psychoactive drugs. So, when we talk about states of consciousness, we have consciousness, being aware, being alert, being alive and awake. Sleep, which we know has 4 non-REM stages and 1 REM stage. Then we have meditation, then we have hypnosis, and then there are things that can alter your consciousness that are not natural to the human. Okay? So we have those states of consciousness that exist for us, and then we also have these states of consciousness that happen to come from an alternate source. So here we go. Psychoactive drugs. The definition of a psychoactive drug is it alters consciousness, perception, mood, and behavior. We're going to go through several of these. The categories that we're really going to be focusing on are depressants, opiates, stimulants, and psychedelics. Depressants are drugs that depress or inhibits or slows down the brain. Opiates, drugs that are chemically similar to something that we, experience, like endorphins. They're chemically similar to that, so morphine and Oxycontin. So pain-relieving drugs. Stimulants, drugs that stimulate or excite brain activity. Stimulants are going to sound pretty good, but they're highly addictive. Psychedelic drugs, drugs that distort sensory perceptions, that change your reality a little bit and how you perceive the world, like actually see the world. Okay, so we're talking about your senses are going to change because of these drugs. So let's get through them. Common effects of psychoactive drugs. So obviously addiction is our number one thing here, right? Addiction is a broad term that refers to a condition in which a person feels psychologically and physically compelled to take a specific drug. Physical dependence is a condition in which a person has physically adapted to a drug so that he or she must take the drug regularly in order to avoid withdrawal symptoms. Physical dependence is whenever, if you don't take the drug, then you will feel withdrawal, okay? Drug tolerance is a condition in which increasing amounts of a physically addictive drug are needed to produce the original desired effect. We'll talk about this later, but this is caffeine for me. If I drink 1 cup of coffee, it's not going to do anything for me. Recently it's upped and upped and upped to where I'm almost drinking a half a pot of coffee a day for it to have the same effects on my brain. Withdrawal symptoms, unpleasant physical reactions combined with intense drug cravings that occur when a person abstains from a drug on which he or she is physically dependent. These are the opposite effects of the drug, right? If the drug makes you feel high, elated, in a euphoric state, then withdrawal will do the exact opposite of that, okay? It's your body saying, where's that stuff you were giving it? Where's that stuff you were putting inside of our body? We need that stuff. Where is it? Where is it? And probably your body has stopped producing something else, and that is why we're having some sort of physical dependence or withdrawal. Drug rebound effect, withdrawal symptoms that are the opposite of a physically addictive drug's action. So there it is right there. And drug abuse, recurrent drug use that results in disruptions in academic, social, or occupational functioning, or in legal or psychological problems. Drug abuse. Am I abusing caffeine? No, I'm not. It is not disrupting my academic, social, or occupational functioning, or in a legal or psychological problem. Now, it could cause me to stay awake a little bit longer, right? It could cause maybe a bout of transient insomnia, and that would be a problem, but it's not, okay? So over here we have some images, cocaine, meth, and alcohol. And this is the dopamine production center of the brain, right? The substantia nigra, right in the midbrain. So to the left, you'll see it, this would be a normal, right? This is your brain on drugs, right? Okay? And then this is your brain off of drugs, where you can see that the dopamine center of the brain is not producing like it did on the drug. Okay? Now we know that when dopamine is released in the brain, it is a rewarding sensation, and your brain wants more of that. Okay? All right, the depressants. I purposely made this slide depressing. There's nothing on it, except for the definition. So depressants, a category of psychoactive drugs that depress or inhibit brain activity. Alcohol, that's our number one, right? Probably the number one most abused, the number one most abused drug out there in the United States, at least. It's real. It's legal for anybody over 21, right? So let's talk about it. This lessens inhibitions by depressing the brain centers responsible for judgment and self-control. It slows down your brain centers for judgment and self-control. Initially, alcohol produces a mild euphoria, talkativeness, feelings of good humor and friendliness, leading many people to think alcohol is a stimulant. But it's just inhibiting your brain. It's taking away that wall that you might have put up. Okay? You become a little bit more social in the first drink or two. As a general rule, it takes about 1 hour to metabolize the alcohol in one drink, which is defined as 1 ounce of 80 proof whiskey, 4 ounces of wine, or 12 ounces of beer. All three drinks contain the same amount of alcohol. The alcohol is simply more diluted in beer than in hard liquor. Body weight, gender, food consumption, and the rate of alcohol consumption also affect blood alcohol levels. Now listen to this little fact right here. Binge drinking is considered 5 or more drinks in a row for a man and 4 or more drinks in a row for a woman. Now, I don't know if you've been to a store or not, but it seems to me like 6-packs and above are the, regular produced packaging of alcohol when it comes to beer, at least. So, okay, 5 or more drinks in a row for men, 4 or more drinks in a row for women, and, a 6-pack is one of the smaller amounts of beer that you could possibly buy. Binge drinking, okay? So, addicted to alcohol, withdrawal causes rebound hyperexcitability in the brain. With a low level of dependence, withdrawal may involve disrupted sleep, anxiety, mild tremors, the shakes, the Sunday scaries, people might call them. At higher levels of physical dependence on alcohol, withdrawal may involve confusion, hallucinations, and severe tremors or seizures. This is higher levels of physical dependence, where you are having a drink most days for most of the day. And then there's extreme physical dependence, where you probably drink from the moment you wake up to the moment you pass out. Extreme physical dependence. Alcohol withdrawal can cause seizures, convulsions, and even death in the absence of medical supervision. This happens. Okay? When a person who is heavily considered an alcoholic and they do drink from the moment they wake up to the moment they pass out, withdrawal could be deadly. Okay? That's how serious alcoholism can get. Behavioral effects of blood alcohol levels. So here's a blood alcohol level on the left here. So the legal limit is 0.08 to drive. So we have 0.05. Behavioral effects. Lowered alertness, release of inhibitions, impaired judgment. Okay? 0.1. Slowed reaction times, impaired motor function, less caution is used. 0.15. Large, consistent increases in reaction time. So the reaction time is increased, meaning more reaction time is needed, okay? Not increases in reaction time where, I could throw something at somebody and they just catch it like that. I'm not talking about that like that. I'm talking about reaction time. There's more reaction time needed, okay? 0.2, huge amounts of depression in the sensory and motor capability, obvious intoxication. You can probably see some stumbling happening here, right? Some slurred words, okay? 0.25, severe motor disturbances, staggering, okay? unable to hold your body upright. Okay, sensory perceptions are greatly impaired. Double vision is something that you might have heard of. Point 3, stuporous but conscious. Okay, no comprehension of the world around them, but still able in the world, right? So consciousness, right? Being alert, being awake. You are awake during 0.3% of your blood alcohol level. Okay? Stuporous but conscious. You have no idea. This is that moment where people black out. Okay? That's what they would say. 0.35. This is some like Civil war hero, got to get my leg amputated type stuff here. Okay? So surgical anesthesia, minimal level causing death. Okay, you know, let's say that we've got to, I know this is a very gruesome example, but we don't have access to any anesthesia, blah, blah, blah. All we have is this 80 proof whiskey. You're going to have to down this bottle and I'm going to chop your leg off because guess what? You're not going to feel it if you get drunk enough. Okay? And then point 4, about half of these people die. When your blood alcohol level gets to 0.4, you are at a 50% chance of not coming back from that. Okay? Blood alcohol poisoning, right? You've heard possibly of that happening before. Inhalants, so some more depressants here. Inhalants are a chemical substance that are inhaled to produce an alteration in consciousness. Paint solvents, model airplane glue, spray paint, paint thinner, gasoline, nitrous oxide, aerosol sprays. They're just a few of the substances that are abused this way. You know, I enjoy the smell of gasoline, but I'm not putting my face in it. So inhalant abuse is most prevalent among adolescents and young adult males. Low doses, they may cause relaxation, giddiness, reduced inhibition, right? So again, you are turning your brain off. At higher doses, inhalants can lead to hallucinations and loss of consciousness. You're really turning your brain off. Suffocation is one hazard, but many inhaled substances are also toxic to the liver and other organs. You can't process these chemicals. So chronic abuse also leads to neurological and brain damage where you're really destroying your neurons in your brain. This picture right here is interesting. I mean, it looks like he's got spray paint all over his face because he does. You know, you can look at mug shots online and occasionally you see somebody with paint on their face. That's because they sprayed it into a bag and put it on their face and inhaled it. And they have, I mean, that's illegal. Okay? So, barbiturates. This is a category of depressant drugs that reduce anxiety and produce sleepiness. So we've got some famous celebrities that, you know, correlate with this drug. Either its use or maybe, you know, using it for their own, you know, pleasurable good. Sometimes they're called downers, which would make sense because that's what a depressant really is. It's not uppers, it's not turning your brain on, it's really depressing your brain, right? So barbiturates depress activity in the brain centers that control arousal, wakefulness, and alertness. They also depress the brain's respiratory system. So if you abuse this, your brain actually starts turning off more and more things, and one of those things happen to be your breathing. Okay? At low doses, it causes relaxation, mild euphoria, and reduced inhibitions. At higher doses, it can produce unconsciousness, coma, and death. Barbiturates produce a very deep but abnormal sleep in which REM sleep is greatly reduced. So you'll experience REM rebound after you take something like this. Common barbiturates include the prescription sedatives Seconal and Nimbutal. The illegal drug methaqualone, the street name would be Quaaludes, is almost identical chemically to barbiturates and has similar effects. You know, Bill Cosby obviously has been tried and accused and charged and sentenced because he used barbiturates, Quaaludes, you know, in a very wrongful way. Withdrawal from low doses of barbiturates produces irritability and REM rebound nightmares. Withdrawal from high doses of barbiturates can produce hallucinations, disorientation, restlessness, and life-threatening convulsions. So, this is Marilyn Monroe, this is Judy Garland, this is Jimi Hendrix, all ended up overdosing or dying of complications from barbiturate abuse. Tranquilizers are like barbiturates, but they actually, they don't have as terrible of side effects. So these actually still exist in the world today. So tranquilizers, depressant drugs, barbiturates do too, but it's tranquilizers can be prescribed. They've moved away from barbiturates. Okay. So tranquilizers, depressant drugs that relieve anxiety. Commonly prescribed tranquilizers include Xanax, Valium, Librium, and Ativan. Chemically different from barbiturates, tranquilizers produce similar, although less powerful effects. I had LASIK eye surgery once, and they gave me Valium before I had that surgery, and it reduced my inhibitions enough to where I did not care that I could. I was awake during this procedure, staring at the lasering my eye 250 different places to correct my lens, and I could smell my eye burning because of it, and I didn't care. Okay? When it says relieve anxiety, it really means take stress away, right? So, tranquilizers still used today quite often. All right, now a different class of drugs, but opiates. Okay, so some pain relieving stuff going on here. A category of psychoactive drugs that are chemically similar to morphine. They have strong pain relieving properties. They're often called narcotics, which is be hard drugs, right? Natural opiates include opium, which is derived from the opium poppy. Okay, morphine is the active ingredient of opium. And codeine can be derived from either opium or morphine. So, you could hear about this in rap songs, right? So, they reference it quite often. At least the codeine part. Synthetic and semi-synthetic opiates include heroin, methadone, oxycodone, and the prescription painkillers, Oxycontin, Vicodin, Percodone, which would be Percocets, Demerol, and fentanyl, which fentanyl is probably the one that you've heard of recently. I mean, busts happen all the time in the United States about fentanyl, which is over 100 times stronger than any other opiate. Usually they were used. Fentanyl, originally was used for elephant tranquilizers, right, to subdue elephants, and so humans don't really necessarily need fentanyl, but it is abused these days. You get a little bit of fentanyl on your skin and you could possibly overdose from it. Okay, a lot of police officers carry around Narcan, which is something that brings back people who would overdose on this. And they are trained that if they get fentanyl themselves, that they might have to be administered to them as well. Opiates produce their powerful effects by mimicking the brain's own natural painkiller called endorphins. So opiates really mimic endorphins, and that's what takes care of our pain naturally. Okay? So endorphin literally means the morphine within. Among the most dangerous opiates is heroin. When injected into a vein, heroin reaches the brain in seconds, creating an intense rush of euphoria that is followed by feelings of contentment, peacefulness, and warmth. Heroin is not the most commonly abused opiate, though. It is the pills, okay? Oxycontin, the most abused opiate, combines a synthetic opiate, oxycodone, with a time-release mechanism. Street users discovered that crushing it and snorting it, smoking it, and all that kind of stuff, that ends up getting them to the place that they want to be, the euphoric feeling that they want to be even more, faster. Extremely addictive. Extremely hard for people to handle the withdrawal of opiates. They feel like they're dying. Because you've done something. You outsourced your pain relieving capabilities as a human. You don't produce endorphins anymore because you're taking care of it with some outside drug. And whenever you go through withdrawal, which happens to be painful, and you don't have endorphins there to help you through that pain because you've told your brain to stop producing them, withdrawal becomes almost unbearable. Here's an example of how heroin was actually used, previously in the United States. So heroin, cough syrup, right here. Opium and its derivatives, including heroin, morphine, and codeine, were legal in the United States all the way up until 1914. In the late 19th century and early 20th centuries, opiates were commonly used in over-the-counter medications for a variety of ailments, from sleepiness to female problems. That's what it was designed. That's what the advertisers would push that. This ad for glycoheroin cough syrup appeared in 1904. Codeine is still used in prescription cough syrups today, which could easily be prescribed to any one of us. All right, stimulants. So here we go. Things that turn your brain on. A category of psychoactive drugs that increase brain activity, arouse behavior, and increase mental alertness. Doesn't sound too bad, right? I mean, I use a stimulant every single day. Caffeine. All stimulant drugs are at least mildly addicting and all tend to increase brain activity. I am addicted to caffeine. If I went a day or two without it, I'd get a headache. And that would be my withdrawal. So even caffeine, which is widely used across America, across the world, as an acceptable drug, and it is a drug, it has withdrawal. I remember when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I drank 3 20-ounce Mountain Dews a day at school. I used to sell them. I could buy them anytime I wanted to. I could go to the bathroom, pick up a Mountain Dew on the way back, and have it. Mountain Dews have so much caffeine in them. I was wired all day. I'd go home and have more soft drinks. I didn't drink coffee back then. But yeah, it was, it's just something a lot of Americans, a lot of people in the world do. All right, caffeine, here we go. A stimulant drug found in coffee, tea, cola drinks, chocolate, and many over-the-counter medications. It can also be found a little bit in apples. Caffeine promotes wakefulness, mental alertness, vigilance, faster thought processes by stimulating the release of dopamine in the brain's prefrontal cortex, basically saying, all right, brain that makes decisions and really, part of the brain that makes decisions and thinks and all that kind of stuff, let's turn you on a little bit more. That's what caffeine does. Caffeine also produces its mentally stimulating effects by blocking this thing called adenosine in the brain. Adenosine is a naturally occurring compound in your body